Hi guys, welcome back to another explanatory grammar video. On this occasion, I want to talk to you guys about causative verbs. Causative verbs are commonly used in English, but sometimes teachers we forget to explain about these verbs. So on this occasion, that is what I want to talk to you about causative verbs. First, what is a causative verb? What is a causative construction? When we use causative verbs, what we want to do is to show that somebody is doing a service for us, that somebody is doing an action for us, possibly because we cannot do it or we don't want to do it, right? That's what causative verbs do. They show that a service is being done for us. Like in this case, we can observe this lady, right, is hairdressing this girl, right? It seems she has a curler in her hands and she is doing something that the girl cannot do to herself, right? Or by herself. Now, we need to understand that we have some phrasal verbs. We have properly we have 4 or 5 causative verbs. I don't know if I said phrasal verbs, I meant to say causative verbs. We have 5 causative verbs per se that show this function, and we have other verbs that, even though they are not causative verbs because they don't follow this function of the language, but they somehow present the same kind of structure. Okay, now the causative verbs are those verbs that are used to indicate that one person causes another person to do something for them, for the first person, of course. And the nuances, these different notes that causative verbs have, can imply that you are paying for a service. It can imply that you are begging for somebody to do something for you. They can also imply that you are asking nicely, or that you are forcing the person somehow. It may show that you are manipulating the person into doing something for you, right? So those are some of the nuances that causative verbs present. Now, as I was telling you, we have some main causative verbs. They are get and have. Get and have are the most commonly causative verbs, but we have some others that are used as causal verbs as well. Be careful not to confuse causal with casual, okay? They are two different words, right? So we have the verb get, of course, as I already mentioned here. We have the verb make, help, force, let, allow, require, and some other verbs. There are not many verbs that allow us to use this causative construction. Now, when we talk about causative verbs, we need to understand, guys, that we have 2 basic patterns. We have 2 basic patterns, which are active causatives and passive causatives. And we have to be careful not to confuse active and passive causatives with active and passive voice. They are different things. We gotta be careful with this, okay? Now, when we talk about active causatives, we want to focus on the person who performs the service for us. That's our main focus of attention. When we talk about passive causatives, on the other hand, we want to pay attention to the action, to the service that was rendered for us. Not much on the person who did it, but on the service. That is for passive causatives. Should we include the agent in passive causatives? Just like active voice has agents, the passive causative also has agents. Now, it depends. This is a stylistic matter. Do you want to? Do you need to? Should you or shouldn't you? It's not a matter of grammar, it's a matter of the message you want to transmit. So think about these different issues. Do you want to mention who the performer of the service is or not? Now, if you want to say who did it, then of course you can mention it. But if you don't want to say who did it, well, you don't have to, right? And you need to think whether the service provider brings something important or not to the sentence. In other words, if it is the expected or the obvious doer of an action. If it is unexpected or an obvious doer of an action, maybe you don't want to share that with people, right? you need to think whether the doer is a generic word. That is to say, to use the word someone, to use the word they, to use the word people, a very general word, right? That doesn't specify who the doer of the action is. So when you use a generic word, it does not really add to the passive causative. It does not add to the meaning. It does not add to the message you want to transmit. Now, seriously, should we include the agent or not? Okay, check these examples. Melissa had the paper written. Who did it? Her ex. Do you want to say that her ex did it? Again, if you don't want to get her into trouble with her new boyfriend, who knows, she might get into trouble with him, then maybe you don't want to say it, right? On the other hand, what if it's a girl that is interested in stealing Melissa's boyfriend? So in that case, she might want to say, hey, you know what, Joshua, Melissa had her paper written by her ex. You know she's gonna get in trouble, right? So again, it's a matter of what you want to say and whether you want to say it, okay? Another example. Tom will have the car fixed this weekend. By the mechanic? Well, yeah, by the mechanic. But you don't need to say it, because if you say by the mechanic, it doesn't really add to the sentence, because it's the expected doer, it's the regular doer of this action. It's different if the mechanic is my friend, my cousin. If it's, I don't know, one of my students, then I might want to say who did it. But if it's simply a mechanic, and not that I want to look down mechanics, of course, but if it's not relevant for our composition, maybe don't include it, right? One last example. Morena plans to get herself let into the building. By someone? Well, yes, by someone. Someone has to do it, right? But because you don't know who that someone is going to be, there is not really a point in us saying this phrase, by someone. So, as you can see, it's a matter of style. It's a matter of whether it is going to bring something to the party, right? Is the agent bringing something to the party? Then by all means, let it in. But if it's not going to be useful, if it's going to end up making your sentence feel a little dumb, like Tom will have the car fixed this weekend by the mechanic, well, yeah, hello, of course, right? So you might not want to include this piece of information. Now, let's talk about the causative verb have. The causative verb have implies that you are paying for the service rendered, okay? You are paying for a service that you were provided. And we have two possible constructions, as I already told you. We have the active construction and we have the passive construction. In the active construction, you will find this pattern in only this construction, okay? Not in the whole sentence. The causative construction takes the verb have here, plus the service provider, plus the base form of the verb. The base form of the verb plus the service. Check this out. I will have, here I have the causative verb have, I will have fosto. Fosto is going to be the service provider, right? Do, it's the base form of the verb that I am using for the action that fosto is going to perform. And what is the service? My taxes. I will have fosto do my taxes. Another example. Why didn't you have someone have someone cater the lunch if you didn't have the time? Here you have plus the service provider, which is unknown. You are using someone, right? Remember, this is active. In passive causative, I might not want to use someone, right? In active, I need to use this word because I need to have a subject. I need to have a doer, right? If I am using the active construction, of course. So as I was telling you, the verb have, the doer of the action, the base form of the verb, and the service provided. I had the dentist fill my teeth last November. Again, look, the verb have, the service provider, the action performed by the service provider in the base form, and the service itself, which is my teeth, right? My teeth being filled last November. That is the structure of the active causative have. In the passive construction of have, you are going to find that you have plus the service rendered plus a past participle plus the agent, which is going to be optional to be included, right? And let's take this same example. I will have my taxes done by Fausto. I will have my taxes done by Fausto. I am using the verb have. Yes, I am using the service, which is the taxes, and the past participle for the action done by the service provider. Why didn't you have the lunch catered if you didn't have the time? As you can see, the pattern repeats, right? Have, the service, the lunch, the verb for the action catered, right? And in this case, I am not using the agent. It's not really important for me to use it. I had my teeth filled last November. Again, the verb have, the service, the past participle for the action performed. I am not using the agent because it's a pretty expected agent, which would be the dentist, right? Now I'm going to come back and talk to you about the other principal causative verb, which is the verb get, okay? But I'm going to stop this video right here and I'll get back to you in the next video to talk about causative verbs, guys.